And present Larry Holmes, First Secretary of Workers' World Party. Thank you, Larry.
I'm okay to leave it up to all of you on whether this modest but yet extraordinary event had merit. The only thing I would add is that stay in touch, because if the government should file charges against us for having this event and some of its participants, we may need your assistance. You know. Comrades, we face many contradictions. I want to touch on one briefly. It's a painful contradiction that has to be rectified by the working class. The sooner the better. It's going to be like everything else, up and down struggle. The leadership of the labor movement, the top leadership, has become a pillar of support for U.S. imperialism and colonialism and occupation. A pillar of support for racism and Zionism. They give workers' dues, union money, to Israel. They organize workers, or try to organize workers, to go to these pro-Israel parades. If you say something sympathetic to Palestine and you know you have a job in the unions, they come after you. No doubt, over the last 3 months, since October 7th, there are probably any number of trade union staff, people, maybe even officers, who have either come under attack or who have been fired for something they posted, on Facebook or whatever. Comrade Brenda Stokely, who not so very, very long ago was the president of a pretty big union, District Council 1707. 35,000 workers, 6 locals. Because of her militant, outspoken, I will not shut up defense of Palestine, the reactionaries in her union targeted her, found a way to push her out. And we know so many good comrades that have a similar story, whether it's in New York or someplace else. But I say this to say this. Comrades, something has cracked with Gaza. Something has revealed itself about changes, deep changes, transformational changes inside the working class that affects the organized labor movement. You've got several major unions that have come out for a permanent ceasefire. That may not be a revolutionary demand, but I'll tell you what, the Palestinian Resistance welcomes it. You've got locals, the AFL-CIO top leadership, who probably goes to Israel. They have had to hire lawyers and, go through all sorts of machinations to do something about all the resolutions, proposals for resolutions that are coming up as high as the AFL-CIO Executive Council level, to demand that labor take a position against genocide. This is unheard of. And we already talked about the millions of workers all over the world, but most extraordinarily in Europe, and especially Aki, who have come out in solidarity with Palestine. We haven't seen that. There's a crack. There's a crack. I don't want to overstated. It's not the revolution, but it's a big crack. And it shows that something's going on. This ain't the working class, of your parents, or there's something's going on. The workers are becoming radicalized. It's a combination of many things. We don't have time to go into it all. And sometimes you can't tell what's happening until some event, reveals, people's reaction to some event reveals stuff. And, I went to a demonstration in New York against genocide in Gaza late in December. It was in front of the New York Public Library. It was called by unions. The damn demonstration was called by unions. And it wasn't the biggest demonstration. There have been hundreds of thousands of people in D.C. and tens and even more than tens of thousands of people in New York. Why not? It's a big city. But this wasn't just the few progressive activists on the staff of this or that union. This was about 500 workers representing about 6 different unions. UAW, the postal workers, UE people, UE had some people there, and there, with a couple of these unions, actually their national executive boards had passed resolutions calling for a permanent ceasefire. And then a lot of union workers just, they came on their own or were organized. But some of us had never seen that, not for Palestine. We just hadn't seen that, And some of the ideas that I was throwing out earlier, and I'm not going to repeat them, about what to do, how we can utilize this development, how we can push it forward in terms of making this year, so-called presidential election year, a year where some steps are taking that pushes the working class further in the direction that some of it's moving towards radicalization, towards anti-imperialism, towards internationalism, towards support with the people and workers of the global South. This is what Lenin was thinking about 100 years ago. So we'll get back to that. It's a good event that we've had here, but it will be even a better event if there is some follow-up. But that's on us. That's on the organizers, and we will do that. I'll just, sum up by saying this. It's all connected. The war against migrant workers, that's an anti-imperialist issue. Imperialism, global imperialism, forces tens of millions of migrant workers to leave their country, leave people they love, places they would like to stay if they could, but they can't, and forces them to migrate to mostly the centers of world imperialism, like this country. And as you know, there is a vicious, violent, multi-level war against migrant workers. And here's the problem, unless I'm missing something, which is possible, I don't see any reaction to that from the working class, any substantial reaction to that. I don't, either the organized labor or even what you might call the left, and these new young workers who are pumping so much great energy into labor and into the workers' movement. I mean, I may be missing something, but I don't see it. And this is dangerous, comrades. It's not just dangerous because, we're as people use humanity. You see people, migrant workers, freezing freezing in Chicago, freezing in New York. You know, everybody's attacking them. Mayors are saying you got to get out. You know, the fascists in the West are putting them on buses, children, with no shoes. I mean, it's, you know, it really is, you know, gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching, and cruel, not to mention racist. But as bad as the human side of this is, the biggest problem is that as long as sections of the working class are not responding to this, then the imperialists are winning, because part of this is designed to divide the working class. I don't care about those people. Let them freeze. Let them have no food. Let their children have no clothes. Let them have no health care. And, you know, and until we deport them, you know, let's set up concentration camps. That's one of the ideas that are floating around, where we'll just put them in concentration camps. And maybe racists can go there and heckle them, and if they get lucky, lynch some of them. This is what's going on right now. And comrades, some of us have got to get together and respond to it. You know, my sister, comrade Brenda Stokely, you know, everybody that you know in your life for a long time, every comrade, they have a role. What Brenda usually does with me is she used to say, Larry, that's a nice idea, but it's a little ambitious. And, you know, you got to get some unity. you got to talk to some people. You just can't be putting out stuff, you know, like it springs from your head. And I got you on that. That's right. But we got to get together, some of us, bigger than this, with more organizations. We've got to challenge each other, because you can't talk about pushing the working class forward, radicalizing the working class, raising class consciousness, raising internationalism, solidarity with workers in the West or the North, with workers in the global South. You can't talk about that unless you're going to do something about it. And if the crisis that we're facing right now is not of the magnitude, is not big enough to force us to do something, I'm not sure we can seriously consider ourselves revolutionaries, socialists, communists, or anything. You know, and then acting like we're on another planet. So, I don't know how you feel about what I said, but it's from the heart, and that's all I got to say. I look forward to working with everybody and more people on a non-sectarian basis. We don't have to agree on everything, as long as we're comfortable with each other, to work together in the interest of our class. If what's good for our class is something that we prioritize and not just what's good for our organization, nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you have to have a choice. You have to say, well, I'm not going to do this because it's not good for my organization, but it's good for the working class. I don't see how you can build a revolutionary organization or a revolutionary anything on that basis. That's fast food nonsense, actually. Anyway, thank you, comrades. Thank you all for coming. Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free. Power to the workers.